Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Starkside. While you're here, I do appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting that like button, and if you're new here, please hit that subscribe as well as a notification bell. So today we'll be talking about the Marvel Legends Gamerverse Marvel Spider-Man 2 Spider-Man. So here we have Spider-Man in the windowless packaging for Marvel Legends. So at the front here we get the logo for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. At the top, we get the logo for Insomniac Spider-Man. At the side, we get this nice digital render of the figure. And at the side, we get this cool artwork of Insomniac Spider-Man. And at the back, we get another nice digital render of the figure, as well as all the accessories that he comes with. Alright, let's get Spider-Man out of the packaging.
Time to grab a snapshot. Awesome.
And here we have Spider-Man. So the game is getting released this October and I'm really excited for it. And Insomniac Spider-Man is one of the greatest versions of the character. And spoiler warning, I was really happy to see him in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And of course, before we talk about the figure itself, let's go over the accessories. So Spider-Man doesn't come as part of a wave, so we don't get any Build-A-Figure part with this figure, but he comes with a ton of accessories. So we get one flipping hand, one wall crawling hand, a pair of fists, and 5 pieces of web accessories. So while we do get a lot of accessories with this Spider-Man figure, I'm actually really disappointed with what we get for the hands. So first things first, while I am thrilled that we get a wall crawling hand for this figure, it's a huge bummer that they gave us only one. And it's something that I don't really understand. The same can be said for the flipping hand, so choices like this really limits the poses that we could do with this figure. And on top of this, the paint apps on this figure are actually just okay, because if you haven't noticed, you could still see the black web lines underneath the white paint here. It would have been so much better if they just sculpted in the white part instead of just painting on top of it, like what we see in the game. I mean, they did this with the Gamerverse Spider-Man Miles Morales, so the red is sculpted in here on the hands, so you would think that they'd do the same for Peter for this new game. So yeah, really disappointed with the hands here. We also get a pair of fisted hands, so these actually have the same issues as the previous ones. The white paint looks like liquid paper or correction fluid, whichever term you use in school. As for the web accessories, I've seen other people complain about these since they've been reused a lot in other Spider-Man figures. So for me, since I haven't gotten most of these before, I'm actually really pleased with what we get here. So this web line, I've actually got this before with the upgraded suit Spider-Man. This isn't so bad. I like the translucent plastic that we get here, but I don't really understand why the end was shaped like this. I mean, you don't see Spider-Man hold his webs or shape them like this. I do also wish that they gave us a web grabbing hand, so at least one would have been great, so he could hold this web line for web swinging poses. The other web accessories look really good, so we get these ones that look like how he'd web up his enemies by their hands. We also get this one for webbing up his enemies around his torso piece, so this looks good. And lastly, we also get this small one for his enemies' faces. So this suit design is based on Spider-Man's suit for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. It's quite similar to his first suit in the first Spider-Man PS4 game with some differences. So the red portions on the side of his thighs are gone now. The white areas on his arms are also done differently. The new suit also has these white lining on some areas. And lastly, the red and blue are also different, so it's a bit more tinted and cooler. And looking at the figure itself, so while I think the figure itself is good, I don't think it captures the PS5 suit design that well in action figure form. So first things first, the red feels closer to the red of the first PS4 suit. Same for the blue, so I think the red and blue should have been more tinted and cooler. The white areas are also not raised, or they're not sculpted in. They're just painted on top of the figure, which kind of cheapens the figure a bit. Like I said earlier, the white looks like the liquid paper you usually use in school. And with that, I'd say you have to be really careful when touching the figure. I'd avoid the white areas, so your fingers and sweat might cause the white paint to degrade over time, so I'd watch out for that. Anyway, looking closely at the figure itself, so starting with the head sculpt, this looks really good. I don't think we've seen this particular head sculpt before. Honestly, I think this is the best Spider-Man head sculpt I've seen, just because of the way the lenses are shaped. I wish we could get this head sculpt for a new classic suit figure in the future. It might be a stretch, but I think this is the quintessential Spider-Man mask and head sculpt, at least in my opinion. And the rest of the figure looks good, so objectively speaking, the paint apps and the web lines all look clean so far, except for this very small blue dot on the shoulder, but it's not that big enough to be bothersome. So I think the sculpt they used here is the same with the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man, which is an improved version of the retro Spider-Man body mold. And me buying this Gamerverse figure is a decision I made because I never got the chance to buy the previous PS4 figure and the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. I chose not to get the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. I didn't care that much for the shape of the lenses or the size of the Spider logo on that figure. I have seen a lot of complaints about this new Gamerverse figure from other collectors because it seems like it's a whole bunch of reuse and sloppy paint apps. But honestly, I'm really happy with the figure itself because I think it combines the benefits that I would want to get from the Renew Your Vows figure, like the toe articulation and improved proportions, and the benefits from the old PS4 figure, which is the design itself. But if you take into account the price of the figure, so I've never really talked about pricing before in my previous video, so for this figure, I don't think the price of this figure justifies those changes over the past figures. So this figure costs like around $35. So yeah, I think this figure is really overpriced for, the accessories and the reuse that we get with this piece. Anyway, overall, while the paint apps could do with a lot of improvement, I am loving the sculpt and proportions we get here, so it's definitely an improvement over the past figures. Now let's go over the articulation for this Spider-Man figure. So the articulation is quite the same. It's actually just the same with the retro Spider-Man, but with the added toe articulation. But anyway, I'll still go over it. So Spider-Man can look up that far. That's good. And he can look down all the way as well. His head does rotate, and we do get some nice neck pivot as well. He has butterfly joints that allow him to move his shoulders forward and backward for more poses. His arms move upward that far, so it's slightly greater than 90 degrees, so that's great. And he can bend them down all the way as well. His shoulders do rotate 360. We get a bicep swivel. Pinless double jointed elbows, that looks good. His wrists do rotate and move up and down, so this wrist articulation is the same for all his alternate hands. He has a diaphragm pivot that allows him to move sideways, bend forward, backwards, and rotate side to side. He also has an inverted ab crunch that allows him to bend forward and backwards a whole lot more. His legs can kick forward that far, that looks good, but just a little bit backwards. His hips move outward very far, that looks great. He has an upper thigh cut, pinless double jointed knees, boot rotation. So actually for my piece here, the left boot was kind of stuck, so I had to boil it in water to heat it up a bit and loosen the plastic, and it worked. Moving on, his ankles move up and down, and he has ankle pivot as well. And lastly, we get toe articulation for this figure. Now for some figure comparisons, here's the Insomniac Spider-Man with the retro classic Spider-Man. So I think they look great side by side. And here's Spider-Man next to the Gamerverse Spider-Man Miles Morales, and they look great side by side. I might hold off on getting the new Gamerverse Miles Morales for Spider-Man 2. The only difference I've seen with that figure is the red stripes going down his shoulders. That new design is good, but I still prefer the classic suit for Miles. And here's Spider-Man next to some other Spider-Man figures that I have, so you could say that this is my current Spider-Verse. So we have the classic Spider-Man, the Earth 1048 or Gamerverse Miles Morales, this old Spider-Man figure from the Amazing Spider-Man 2, MCU Spider-Man, and Symbiote Spider-Man. And I think this Symbiote Spider-Man figure that was just released a few years ago could serve as your PS5 Symbiote Spider-Man for the time being, since it's mostly the same body mold. And that's my review of the Marvel Legends, the Marvel Spider-Man 2 Spider-Man. So I think this figure has a good amount of accessories, awesome sculpt, decent paint apps that could do with a lot of improvement, and superb articulation. So despite my issues with the white paint apps, I think this figure is amazing. However, if you're someone who's got the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man and the previous PS4 Spider-Man figure, I don't think this figure will be much of a good addition to your collection just because of the price point. So I think for me, just because I don't have those two figures before, I think that's why I went for this figure. And actually, just getting him to do this crouching pose was already enough to make me love this figure. And if you're wondering where I got this figure, so I got this figure from TOYCON Philippines 2023. So if you want to check out my vlog of that event, there's a link in the description below. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this figure. Let me know what you think of my review. Please leave a comment below. And if you like this video, I do appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting that like button. And if you still haven't, please hit that subscribe as well as the notification bell. You can also follow me on social media. Links in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.